Welcome to Permission to Shine, the space where high-achieving women like you come to peel back the layers, overcome what's been holding you back, and rise into your most authentic, powerful self. I'm your host, Sharice Bisram, inner power activation leader and intuitive healer, and a woman who knows what it means to look like she's thriving on the outside, also while feeling disconnected on the inside. This podcast is here to remind you, you didn't come here to just perform, you came here to lead with your soul. Your obstacles, they're invitations to expand. And your power, it was never outside of you. It's been waiting within you all along. Each week we'll dive into honest conversations, healing insight and soul-led strategies to help you stop self-sabotaging, reclaim your light and lead your life, your business and your relationships from deep-rooted truth. So if you're ready to rise with grace, softness and fire, you're in the right place. Let's get into it. Hey everyone, welcome to episode 105. I nearly said 109 then. I don't know why. Strange. We are in Mercury Retrograde though, so that could be why my brain's just all over the place, which is absolutely fine and valid. But we are in August. If you're listening to time, I'm so happy to be in August, and I've already felt the energy shift. And that's because we are in the Lionsgate portal as well, which is such a beautiful energy to be in. I say that a few years in a row I've been in a very vulnerable place, and I think this is something I really wanted to speak on the podcast today. Look at me going straight in. So proud of myself instead of rambling on like I normally do at the beginning. Well, here we are, rambling on. But the last few years around this time have been quite difficult for me. And if you go back to previous episodes, because obviously this is, like I said, 105, this time in 2023, probably the year I started the podcast, I had a really difficult summer. And what I know to be true is every time something feels really hard and difficult, it's because it's breaking open. And for me, my healing journey truly began in the pandemic, right? And I would say sort of midway through 2020, I started to take it seriously. But then saying that, probably, I think if you know the story, it was the March that I met someone right before we went into lockdown, had a date literally the day of the lockdown in the outdoors. And then when they cut it off with me in May, because they're being super vulnerable, I was triggered by their vulnerability. And then I spoke to my auntie, and then she said to me, the reason that you find it uncomfortable being vulnerable is because you've never been vulnerable yourself. And then that was really the initiation point of looking into vulnerability. And then with looking into vulnerability, I found out the reasons why and the childhood trauma stuff. And then it kind of rippled on from there, doing my master's, doing the research, finding the ACEs, all of the things, then moving on and on and on. And so I would say 2022, again, I dated someone else, and it'd been a long time. Obviously, that's the gap that I had from 2020 to 2022. Didn't date anyone in between that, apart from obviously them meeting that person, the new person. And I felt quite deeply, and I think it was because it was, again, the first time I'd met someone where my guard was down. And so I gave everything I had to it, really enjoyed the process, really enjoyed the person. Now I look back, I can see that I was still holding on to some old tendencies of my own and this avoidant behavior pattern that I had, that obviously I was looking for in other people. And again, we attract what we are or what we were. And I think for me, now I can see that that was almost a test in itself, but I didn't know what I know. I didn't know then what I know now, you know. And this is the powerful thing about dating, and that's why I always have the dating expert on Andre, because he frames it in such a way that's really powerful to understand. But when you can see it reflected back to yourself, I think that's just the most beautiful part of healing and the healing journey, because, you know, you can sit back and say, oh, okay, I can see where I played a part in that. And for me, accountability is such an important part of growing, learning, evolving. And if you really want to gain self-mastering your lifetime, I think it's a really important thing to reflect. That's why I journal every day, because I want to be accountable for myself. And also I'm in a position where I'm teaching and guiding and leading people, so it'd be very hypocritical of me to tell everyone else to do it and not do it myself, right? And that's not who I am. I'm very much yeah, I say it and I do it. That's it. You know, no messing around in between that. But anyway, so I met that person then in 2022, literally probably this summer. And then we kind of split up around the October time, and that put me into another dark night of the soul. So then by 2023, this sort of time then, I was thinking that I'd sort of healed through a lot of my father wounds, a lot of my mother wounds. But what came to the surface in that 2023 was the Venus retrograde. And that broke me open because that presented to me a part of my childhood wounds that I had healed to an extent. But again, another level, there's another layer, right? So that was all about one, how I valued and saw myself because Venus is all about our values. And two, boundaries around my heart and what I'm willing to receive and accept. And I realized at that point then I was still proving myself to some degree to receive love. And that's something I'd always done. I'd always gone above and beyond for everyone else in my life. And, kind of expecting that in return. And then I realized that was kind of my fault, really, because I'd set myself up for failure because I'd bent over backwards for people. I was expecting that in return. And the reality is we're doing the best we can with what we know, right? We all have different responsibilities and obligations, and not everyone can meet you where you are. And we have to be okay with that. Now, I have no expectation from anyone about anything. And that's a very freeing space to be. But, with my life as a whole, now I look back and reflect, I was so lonely most of my life. And I think it's because I always say, I think, I know. And I think that's a bit of a, there we go, said I think again. That is me trying to be more open and I guess a way of not coming across too authoritative. But I'm going to make a point. I've caught myself there. I'm going to make a point to say, I know. That's my thing now. I'm going to do it. It's sad I said it, watch me subconsciously do, I think. But now we become aware of it, we can catch it. So if you ever see me say, I think again, say to me, no, you know, because I do know. And I do know it's because I can't remember what I was going to say now. No, it's gone from my head. Something about um vulnerability, heart opening. Just going to have to listen to me ramble on here about I don't know what. But anyway, let's just get to the point. So, the heart opening, the receiving, the proving, all of those things, I was still doing it in 2023, just a small bit, nowhere near as much as I was doing it now. But it's that reminder that, like we said, we have to keep healing, keep evolving, keep growing through these spaces. But it was a real raw moment in 2023. And I kind of broke really. And I think that that was a reminder. And at the time, you just don't know. When you're in it, you just don't see it because you're in it and you have to feel the pain of it. And it was just like a bit of an argument I had with my family and really painful and hard. But with that, again, that initiation, it did break down the last wall that I feel like I was holding on to in this iteration. Obviously, we're going to keep breaking through walls because we're growing. But now when I look back to this year, this portal, when I was listening to my friend Rosie Glow, who's doing a beautiful Lionsgate portal ritual training initiation, she was saying in the pre-masterclass about how we are receiving some downloads or full circle moments from the previous Lionsgate portal that was in 2023. Because then last year I went to Glastonbury and that was just the most beautiful trip I could have given myself. So yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say is healing is a roller coaster, right? 2023 felt raw, brutal, hard. I had to cut out lots of friends. I had to set new boundaries and new values and new ways that I saw myself and saw others in my life. And then 2024, I sunk into the softness. And again, the reducing of the armor and the proving and all those things, it was so minimal. But this last 6 months for me have been, like I said to you over and over again, really raw. And because of that, I've had to let go of everything that I thought I knew before. I've had to be really, really vulnerable and really rely on the people around me to help support me through this last stage. And the reason for that is there are no more walls, there's no more armor, there's no more safety net internally. Because the thing about survival mode is that it is almost a blessing and a curse. It's that double-edged sword. Like a part of you needs to push forward, get through it, breathe, all of those things. And then when you are safe, you no longer need to push forward, force your way through, and obviously you need to breathe, but like not from a controlled space. And it was really funny because when I was in LA last year, my friend Jessie Lute, she is a breathwork expert, incredible woman, find her on social media. And she said to me then, she went, my darling, you don't need to control your breath anymore. You're such a warrior. You need to let go. And so for me, I'm one of these people that little seeds plant from what I learn. And it could be like years later that it blooms. But I always remember. My friends always call me an elephant because, when people send you like a 20-minute voice note, I remember to cover all the points. I think that's why I'm so good at hosting and presenting and stuff, because I remember everything. When I'm interviewing people, I can recap back to that scenario. Unless obviously today Mercury retrograde seems to have taken my memory, but there we are. So I just remember that. And so I think from that point was when I decided to, yeah, soften again, another layer, right? I said I think they're on purpose, by the way. I knew I said that, just saying. So, yeah, it's been a real interesting space to be in. But yesterday, on my sister's birthday, I just felt so much love. And I'm so grateful for that because honestly, like I said, in my life, I felt really lonely for most of it. I said to you before, and I've said it all over my social media and my blogs, that I cried myself to sleep every night for 20 years. Now I go to sleep so peacefully. And I went through a phase, probably again over the last 6 months, of going to sleep with a meditation, either my own that I've recorded myself or someone else, another practitioner that I like what they do. But the last week or so, I've just gone to sleep without anything. And I thought, you know what? That feels really healing. And I think it's just a really beautiful way of me honoring the peace that I found within myself, because sometimes I've had experts on here that are either therapists or maybe mindset coaches or experts, and we all talk about how we have a nighttime routine. And what's really lovely about having a nighttime routine is it sets you up, right? It sets you up to, well, wind you down. I always refer to like babies have bath bottle and bed, and it's almost giving yourself an equivalent of that. But what tends to happen with a routine is sometimes it becomes discipline over devotion. And when I find myself feeling like I have to do something in order to get more sleepy or more restful, whatever, that for me then feels like it's a crutch and not devotion to myself. So this is what's really interesting for me when I'm evaluating myself and I'm saying it back to you. It's really important for you to move things around, shift it all up. You can't be rigid in these structures, And I enjoy listening to meditations. I enjoy being in it. But over the last week, I've been really dedicated to doing that work in other ways, especially because we are in an energy portal. Like I said, the Lionsgate portal. And I'm feeling the shifts. I'm feeling the internal freedom. And I have been dedicated to doing somatic releases every single day, stretches and things like that, because it feels good. So that's why I'm doing it, right? Even down to one of my friends on TikTok, she shared a video about how it's really good to like massage your hands and feet before you go to bed, just yourself, just like a little kind of rub on your hands and feet. And that sort of activates your body to tell it that, well, it helps the detoxifying process. So for your sleep, it helps. And then in the morning, it also does that. So I've been doing little kind of shifting things around a little bit, and it feels really good. So I invite you to do the same thing if it feels like that's the time for it. Because, yeah, as I said, it's just telling your body in other ways that it's safe. And I'm feeling that safety within myself now. And it feels so beautiful. And I share this because I want you to feel that for yourself. I'm kind of connected to this and in a weird way. I shared on my social media that I have just secured my sixth paid speaking job this year. Now, if you are just a normal person listening to this and you don't have to speak in your job, then you're probably thinking, oh, okay, cool. But if you are I don't know, a coach or a mindset expert or, corporate and you have to deliver talks and things like that, a lot of people in the industries at the moment speak for free or they pay to speak for the opportunity. So this is why for me it was important to share that I've been paid to speak, because I decided last year that I don't want to speak for free or pay to speak. Now, the only time that I have done a speaking job for free is when it was part of my coaching with my mentor that I had. I got that included with the the price. So I paid her for 6 months. She was business coach, business mentor, and then as a result of me signing up when I did, I got a free slot at her event to talk, which was great. And I kind of saw it as I've paid to be in her energy to learn how she does business or to how I can do it for myself. And so I got it included. But I knew then, and even through the training of that, that I was a really good speaker. And I've known that, right? Because I've been speaking throughout my dance career and also into this career. And that was really what started this journey as a mentor and inner power activation leader and intuitive healer, was speaking about my journey. So I know that I'm really good at speaking. And equally, I think when I've been on the podcast or been on other people's podcasts and had my own one, it gets relayed back to me a lot that I'm really natural at it and all these things. And I'm not telling you this to be bragging. I'm telling you this because something important happened in my mindset that has allowed me to own this space. And that is because I chose to only take spade speaking opportunities, paid speaking opportunities. And what happens in that choice is a lot of things coming up that you have to say no to. And there's definitely been times this month, sorry, not this month, this year, where it's been uncomfortable. Like I would have wanted to, there was great opportunities that came forward and I would have wanted to have said yes to. But if they can't pay me for my time, then I don't see as much value in it. Now, someone might beg to differ on this, and I know that if you have like a group or something you want people to join to, but to get more leads, in the business space, which basically means that people on your mailing list and things like that, you can absolutely do that. And it's a really great opportunity, especially if it's a room full of like thousands of people. But that is just not the way I work, and it's really okay to own that for yourself. But it's uncomfortable. And I don't want anyone to think that, oh yeah, that was just handed to you. And don't get me wrong, I've missed this important part out to tell you, is that everyone that I'm speaking for this year has approached me. They've seen me talk somewhere else, they've either been in my energy somewhere else, or someone's referred them. That's why and how I'm speaking this year. I haven't poached anyone. They've come to me because they know how good I am at what I do, and I own that. But there is like I said, a part of you that has to hold the line on that, because I've also been offered other speaking opportunities that I said no to because I was getting paid elsewhere. And I think it comes down to the fact that I was a dancer for so long and I was always paid for my talents. And this also ties into the values part. My value is myself, my time, my energy, and my gifts, the ability to speak and it land so well with people, and also holding the room. Now, when I've been hosting events this year, I have this innate ability to speak to a room of people and engage all of them. And I don't know if that comes from working with teenagers in schools that are at a really uncomfortable age. I just meet people where they're at. And I know that's a skill. I know that of every part of me, because even when I was teaching at secondary schools, just like world dance styles or whatever it was I was doing, the teachers would be amazed at how I can gravitate the room, and even one of my first speaking jobs I had, I spoke to a room of boys. It was 300 boys, and it was for International Women's Day. And the talk was empowering empowering women to empower men. That was the name of the talk. And I sat in a room full of boys and I spoke about suicide rates for men, spoke about mental health for men. And the head teacher came up to me at the end of my talk and said, "Don't know how you did that." And I was like, well, it's a gift, right? To be able to read a room, hold that space, and get them to talk and engage and ask questions after. I was like, oh, wow, I'm really good at this. And this is what's important, right? We own what we're good at. And this all kind of ties in together because you need to allow yourself to be held and supported in order to be able to support and hold other people and the room. And people can feel the transparency of you and the honesty and the rawness when you are in integrity with who you are. People can sense me, I'm not performing. This is just the way I am. And therefore, they want to pay me to hold the room because they know it's no smoke and mirrors. It's what you see is what you get. And that I'm going to give all of myself to that space with intention and integrity and alignment, you know? And with that, I'm not going to deplete myself, but I'm going to give you 110%. And it will feel like you've been at an arena tour with someone that has changed your life. I can guarantee you that. And this is me being a Leo, but also me owning my power. And I say this with such, intention to you all because I want more people to own their own power. If we all just said, oh, I'm really good at this is my talent, and this is how much I charge for it, the world would be a little bit of an easier place because we would just know where we stand. Whereas a lot of people are like dancing around their price points, dancing around what they're good at, and not actually saying it and owning it. And that's why, as women especially, we feel like we get done out of our services or we feel resentful for things because we're not owning the fact that I'm really good at this is what I charge and I'm going to do it and say it and be it for that amount of money. And I know that I wouldn't be able to do what I do now without having the support of the people in my life that I've had, whether that be mentors, whether that be friends, whether that be family. And this year, like I said, more than ever, is the most loved I've felt in my entire life because I allowed myself to be loved. And when I go into those rooms and deliver these talks, I'm telling them what I tell you all about allowing myself to crumble, to be vulnerable, to feel pain and say that it's been hard because it has, even up to receiving these paid gigs. This year has ripped me a new one, right? Ripped me apart into a million pieces. And for me, it feels like a full circle moment to have secured 3 more paid opportunities just in 1 week. They all came through and forward, and I secured them all. And that's because I own all of it. Like I don't want you for one moment to think, oh, you're so shiny, you're doing so well, rah, rah, rah. This doing so well part comes with also feeling like you're not doing well. It feels like you're clawing your way up a mountain at times because you're dedicated to that growth journey. And I said on another podcast I was a guest for the other day that my whole life has felt like I've dug out of prison with a spoon. It really does, There's been no guide map, there's been no person to follow. It's been me just trusting my intuition and moving forward. And the most powerful part about it now is I know people are behind me following me on this journey. And this is for me why it's so important that I tell you all of these parts, right? I tell you that 2023 felt absolutely excruciating, but I learned from it. And I tell you that this last 6 months has broke me into a million pieces and I've welded myself back together with gold. And that's the alchemy of my life. And that's why I have to go first and lead the way. So I hope that from this episode alone, you've understood that it's supposed to feel uncomfortable at times. And that when you are in alignment with your purpose and who you choose to be, and all of you, that you do get to reap the rewards. I hope that's really clear. And I would love for you to send me questions as well. Like whenever these things come up and you're not sure, please do ask me questions. It's so important. And like I said, we're in the Lionsgate portal right now if you're listening to time. If you are listening to time, I am hosting a somatic workshop movement session like I do the body alchemy stuff on the 7th. The full moon is actually officially on the 9th, but I think it's really important for us to release out any stagnant energy, any old stories, any limiting beliefs that no longer serve us with this full moon. And it's so powerful because it's a full moon in Aquarius and we have Pluto in Aquarius at the moment. So we're really going to do a lot of healing in this session for not just ourselves, but the whole world. And I think it's really important because I do that in my meditations all the time. And if you have ever been to one of my sessions, you will know that I am all about the collective. And that's what Aquarius is about. And Aquarius and Pluto is even more so about that. Pluto is about the masses, right? So we're going to do some really deep healing on the 7th. So you can join the portal, which is £33 a month, and you get both sessions included with that live. And then everything I've ever done is recorded in that portal. So if you join now, you can catch up on the last one that I did for the new moon. And all of this stuff is really practical and present. Like you can do it at any point in your life and it will just be really relative. And there's lots of meditations and activations in there. So it's a really lovely space, as well as it's growing. So we're getting some more community involved, because in like connecting with other women that are in similar situations. I always find that I attract the same sort of woman to my spaces, which is just so beautiful, because obviously you're all a version of me in another lifetime, I'm sure, like as in our stories all connect in some sort of a way, which is just the most beautiful part of my work. So that is obviously there. And then on the 8th, my friend Rosie is hosting her session, so I'll pop the link in my show notes so you've got that option to have a look if you want to join us there. I think hers is £14, 14.44, and then you have the option to stay on and pay 14.14 for a month to be in her portal too, or you can just join the one-off session from her. But it's going to be super powerful. So the 7th is going to release, the 8th is going to activate, connect these energy codes and the beautiful Lionsgate energy, and then the 9th is actually the official full moon. So we're kind of in that energy of change, transformations, activations, receiving. But what I always say is you have to let go before you welcome in, right? So it's all connected in this really beautiful way. And also just a reminder that I do have one-to-one spaces available. So for the month of August, I've got 3 Becoming Iconic spaces, which is my 90-minute call, and then you get 2 days of voice note support. So if there's something here that's like troubling you, or you're just feeling like it's summer and you're ready to shift something in a really major way, that little session will just completely change your life. And you can see on my Instagram all of my testimonials from previous clients and things like that, even the ones that just do the one session and have massive breakthroughs. And then I've got 2 spaces for this month, starting this month, for either 6 months or 12 months for Rise, which is my one-to-one support. And that is for the woman that is just done, when you're done with things being a certain way. And I created this because, like I said to you all, I cried myself to sleep for 20 years. On the outside, my life looked amazing, shiny, professional dancer, traveling the world, doing all this really cool stuff. But my inner world was just breaking all of the time. And I couldn't carry the weight of the responsibility, the pressure, the expectation, all of those things to prove that I was successful and amazing and all this stuff, when I just didn't feel it. So I invite you to just drop me a DM if that sounds like something that you feel like you need right now, because I'm here to hold you. And I think more than anything, what I've learned, especially in this energy, is that if you don't feel held yourself, you can't hold anyone else, and you deserve to feel held with every part of your being. So send you so much love and light this week and all weeks. It will be the Lionsgate portal. It will be the full moon in Aquarius. So so much love to you. And I've got some really incredible guests coming up over the next few weeks. So sending so much love and light, and I will speak to you soon. Thank you for listening to this week's episode. Please do comment as well what you feel like you've learned from the episode. It's really helpful. And if you can rate it on a 5-star review, I would be so grateful, because that just means that more women get access to these teachings within the episodes. And also, who would you like to be on the show? DM me and let me know. And please do share with a friend that you know needs to hear what's in this episode today. I would also love to invite you into my Inner Power portal, because that is the space where all of my meditations are, all of my activations, and I host 2 live sessions per month that do include movement and my spiritual downloads and all the beautiful things that I offer all in one space. Plus you get to ask me any questions that you have. So I'd love to see you in there. Have a great week.